Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Chacko, and I'm here today with my good friend Susan Riggs. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
It's just an honor to be here. I'm so excited to be able to introduce something new. It's a new program, a 10-week video series called Engaging with a Messy World. Maybe you've noticed that our world is pretty messy. That might be a mild word. There's just a lot of stress and chaos and division and violence. And I learned of this program that Susan had put together for another purpose. And the more I learned about it, the more I wanted to know. And I thought, we really need to share this. This is really going to help all of us when we don't know what to do or think or say about the things that are whirling around us. So we dreamed up this idea to put this video series out there, and that's what we're doing. Um, I've known Susan a long time. We're prayer partners, so I know her very well, and I can vouch for her wisdom. But she has a lot of experience in this sort of thing because she's a specialist in integral coaching. And she's studied many different styles and methods of coaching and has experience with groups and individuals. And all that comes together to add to what she has to tell us today. So, Susan, tell us how in the world you decided to make a 10-part program about um, a messy world. And first, tell us a little something about yourself before you dive into that, actually.
Yeah, I'm a coach in private practice. I have done leadership coaching, team coaching, and individual coaching, life coaching for a number of years. I'm certified through New Ventures West in this integral coaching process, which is about helping people grow deeper, develop more maturity, more emotional skills. And I developed this program because I realized that with the world in such a crisis, there's so many interlocking crises, which are really a huge threat to humanity. This time in the world is all hands on deck. We all need to be doing the best we can to contribute our share. And I realized that there are a couple of issues. One is, how do we do our best work without burning out? And just becoming useless. And two is, how can we do work that is really effective as opposed to just reactive and panicked?
Right.
And I realized that the skills that I teach people when I coach are really universally helpful, including for activists or anyone who's just trying to help the world be better, or even help their own family and household be better. The skills that we train in coaching just make everything more effective. So I wanted to share that.
Yeah, this is just so necessary, and for all our listeners, Susan and I could probably talk about this for hours and hours, but I wanted to say we're going to do this fairly briefly, so listen up. And she has references and resources, and I think you'll get a lot out of it, and hopefully we'll have time to listen to the whole thing, which we hope to make no more than 20 minutes. So, Susan, your first session is called narratives, and I've struggled with that word as it pertains to all of this, trying to understand what that means and how could that possibly help me and anybody deal with the world better. So I'm really anxious to hear everything you say about narratives.
All right, thank you. The concept of narratives is fundamental, and it's incredibly useful in coaching. Even though it may sound like an obscure term, we actually know what it is because we do it all the time. You could call it stories, interpretations, opinions, or just the meaning that we make out of what we experience. And the idea is that we do this all the time. Every one of us makes narratives all day long because we have to. Our brains are designed to make meaning out of the data that we receive. Um, some neuroscientists have estimated that we have like 12 million bits of data sensory data coming at us in any given second. I don't know what the actual numbers are, but it's enormous. And our minds are very, very good at ignoring the vast majority of it, and they have to choose which pieces to ignore. And then they have to choose what meaning to make out of the rest of it so that we can make decisions and function in our daily lives. And that means that we're taking observed facts and making decisions with them. And there's a huge difference between the facts and the meaning that we make out of it. And that's what I'm going to spend our time on, is trying to help people understand that distinction. Let me just say that the reason that we do this is evolutionary. Our ancestors, millions of years ago, had to survive, and they would see or hear or touch something, and they had to decide really fast. Do I run away? Do I try to eat it? Do I attack it? Do I make friends with it? Do I mate with it? Do I ignore it? And if they made those decisions fast enough and accurately enough, they would survive and pass on their genes. So we have this trait of being able to assess, and without our even consciously knowing that we're doing it, we make a meaning. Oh, this means this.
Yeah, this person is dangerous. This
Right.
person is safe, based
Right.
on lots of
Exactly. Those are some of the common decisions that we make. And so our minds are still making those decisions really fast, and we don't necessarily know that we're doing it. And the thing is, the modern world has a lot more nuance in it and a lot more issues that we may not be aware of, which are causing us to make bad decisions. And we'll go into some examples in a minute, but I want to start with something really simple to help draw the distinction between the facts and the interpretations. So if you look outside your window, can you tell me something about the weather today?
It's totally white, cloudy everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any sense of what the temperature is?
The tree is bare, plus I was out there, so I know it's cold. It's cold and gray, kind of.
Yeah, cold and gray. So I would say gray is a fact. That is a verifiable fact. It would be captured by a video camera or measured by instruments. Cold is relative and is subjective. So the temperature is whatever it is, I don't know, 45 Fahrenheit or something like that. That's a fact. When I was growing up in Madison, Wisconsin, in April, the temperature would break above freezing, and the college students would be out in their shorts throwing frisbees in the snow because it was warm.
Right.
At 35. So that's an interpretation. So we got facts which are measurable or capturable on a video. Mm-hmm. And we've got our interpretations of them, and we do them all the time. We have to know whether we think it's cold or warm, because that informs what we're going to do and how we're going to dress for it. Exactly. So that's a pretty harmless example. A less harmless example, which people show our evolutionary tendency to make narratives. Conspiracy theories come from this trait of our minds, because we look for patterns, and we will often see patterns even when there aren't any. And this is a proven neurological fact. If you give somebody a sheet full of dots, they'll see drawings in it or patterns of some kind in it. And so malicious actors will take this tendency and say, oh, connect the dots, and then you see that these people are doing that to us. Sometimes it is true. Sometimes there are people who are doing something to other people, and in many cases it's not. So it would be really good for everybody to develop an acute radar for this and say, oh, there's a narrative. I wonder, is it well supported by the facts, or is it something somebody made up to cause harm? So that's the worst negative end. But all narratives are, oh, I'm sorry about the background noise. Somebody's cutting a tree down nearby.
That's okay. We're going to ignore it. We're going to have a healthy narrative about that.
Yes, I will just keep going.
The guy has no bad intention.
Yes. So there's no narrative that is provably true. By definition, it's just an interpretation of the observed facts. But many narratives are pretty well supported by the facts, and they're good enough to go ahead with, to make decisions on.
Right.
So that's the kind of the span of solid narratives versus malicious ones.
Right.
So I want to give you a personal example, which helps us get toward why this is so useful. So I live in a courtyard of condominiums with 28 units and many neighbors, and we run across each other as we go back and forth to the parking garage and walk into the metro and so on. And sometimes I'll go out and I'll see a neighbor coming toward me, and I'll want to say hi because I'm really interested in knowing my neighbors and being friendly. And there's one in particular who looked Asian and would just never make eye contact. He was just looking straight forward or looking down and never would even say hi. And so it was easy for me to feel hurt. It was easy for me to think, wow, that person is really unfriendly. And I caught myself thinking that. And I thought, there are other ways to look at this, right? There are other possible stories about this. Perhaps this person doesn't have much English. Perhaps he's just very, very introverted, and perhaps he's just not interested in connecting with neighbors. Perhaps he's been having a bad day. Perhaps he has depression. All kinds of things. I have no idea, and I cannot, with any integrity, ascribe a motivation to him because he's the only one who knows what his motivation is.
Right. I think that example really hits home for me, Susan, and for everybody, because we probably on an almost daily basis make an assumption about other people's words or texts or motivations or facial expressions and or delayed responses. I mean, I was really upset a couple months ago because I worked really, really hard on this project, and I finally got the whole proposal put together, detailed email, and sent it to the three main people, who were going to comment and kind of give me the okay, I thought, and hopefully tell me how wonderful it was or something. And I didn't get a response for three people, not just one. And I'm thinking, oh, it must not be a good plan, or they don't, maybe I think I'm not qualified, or maybe they're not responding because they have to wait and talk to each other so they can let me down gracefully or something. And fortunately, I just let it go a while and waited. And then I did come to the realization, like, I don't know what they're thinking. Maybe they're just busy. And I just sent a reminder notice, a reminder friendly little note. Hey guys, haven't heard back. Just wonder what you're thinking. And then I got a prompt reply, oh, so sorry. And everything was fine. It really made me think. I could have really messed that up if I had written some snippy email back or something, or just never contacted them again because my feelings were hurt.
Or given up on the project.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's a very common tendency, and it's very normal. So there's nothing pathological about our tendency to feel hurt and to react to things that happen. But it's incredibly liberating to notice that we're making a story out of it, and just hold it a little more lightly. And that's the main takeaway I want to leave people with is, can we hold this a little bit more lightly and realize that there are other possible interpretations of the situation? It just helps us breathe better and make better decisions.
Yes. It does require an intentional pause before one reacts with the first story.
Yes.
If you make a story and assume that's the only correct narrative and you're right, and then you react, it can cause difficulties.
Yes. And many people, for really good reasons, many people are used to being right, and they're pretty sure of their reasoning. Like, they're used to being logical, and when they're sure that they've hurt someone's feelings, or someone's hurt their feelings, or there's something wrong with a relationship, they're just sure. So learning to step back and put a little bit of daylight around that certainty
Mm-hmm.
is a step toward greater maturity and makes us open to more compassion.
Right. Right.
A couple more things I want to say about narratives that are important to know. One is that we often create stories about ourselves, and those stories are often very critical. So that's another really good area to start noticing. If I didn't get my entire list done on a given day, I can hear this voice in my head saying, boy, you're disorganized. Wow, you're lazy. You must just not be very smart. So those voices happen, and those are narratives that are internally created and then directed inward. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to hold those a little more loosely, because they're just thoughts. They're not usually well supported by the facts. And it's not that we're going to make these stop happening. They will always happen, but they lose their grip on us
Right.
when we can identify them as narratives.
Right. I mean, that's the whole trick is though, isn't it? How does one uh take that pause to think about if whether this is a really clear moral issue and there's no question, or am I just making up a story because of, I was hurt years ago, or because I'm tired, or because of whatever reason, I don't know.
Yes,
How does one get there?
yes. Same way you get to Carnegie Hall. Practice, practice, practice.
I thought you were going to say one
Um,
step at a time.
that too,
That too.
yes. So you mentioned moral certainty, and I want to address that too, because sometimes when people hear about the idea of narratives and the fact that narratives are inherently not true or false, they're just either better supported or less well supported by facts, people will get upset with me and say, are you saying that there's no moral certainty? And I'm actually not saying that. It is entirely possible to look at a situation and decide that I feel clarity on it and I'm willing to act on it. However, the certainty that we feel is often not as warranted as we think. And so a psychologically mature person and a compassionate person will proceed and take right action, do what they feel is necessary for justice and love and compassion and what all. Um, but they'll do it with an open mind, being willing to take in new information if there's new information to be had. So that's a really interesting balancing act.
Right.
And I know we're close to our time, so I just want to say there is a teaching in all of the world's faith traditions that we are not supposed to judge. And this is the reason, because when we're judging, we're making narratives about things that we don't really know.
Right. Right. Like all kinds of inner work, it's not stuff we can just snap our fingers and say, well, starting now, I'm going to be more mindful of this. So I'm going to consider whether my story is correct. But I think everything you've said is just food for thought that will help us be more open to the idea that our story may not be fully accurate, or there may be different versions or people that we have to hold, as you say, gently. And sometimes they're contradictory. My own experience is sometimes I do this a lot. I see in both sides, and it's sometimes painful and difficult to carry all those kind of conflicting stories where in my mind I don't see a black and white, so I have no choice. I have to carry all that. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, and
So
I'm glad you mentioned that it's painful because that's actually a good sign. And I
yeah.
want people to carry away this idea too. If we are uncomfortable, that's a sign that we're bringing the maturity necessary to hold um, different ideas.
Right. Right.
Discomfort is a good sign.
Very good. I'll take that. I'll take that. Did you want to suggest like a practice or something specific that our viewers could take home to start them on their journey to Carnegie Hall.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be really useful to just start a list and keep it for at least a few days. Every time you think something that you believe something like it's cold today, write it down and just notice that we're making narratives all day, every day.
Yes,
You'd be amazed how many we can catch ourselves doing. And this is not to make ourselves wrong or to try to stop doing it. We cannot stop doing it. We
right,
have to do it.
right,
It's normal. But
right,
it's just to realize that we do it, and so we can release our certainty.
right. And I would encourage everybody to especially put on that list the narratives we make about other people and our judgments about their motivation and why they're doing what they're doing when we really don't know. Um, anyways, well, this has just been fabulous. We have 9 more sessions. They're kind of brief, so Susan has offered some resource material that we'll provide, and her website is rigsintegralcoaching.org, and mine is serenityandhealth.com, and all of that, as I said, plus the resources will be included with the notes. So thank you so much, Susan. I'm so glad we got to do this. And we had a little practice of some sort of mindful peacefulness with the tree. That was part of the practice, right?
Work in whatever arises, we
That's
deal with
right.
it.
That's right. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening. And we hope you listen to the whole series, because I think we'll all learn a lot, and in this way find some more peace and healing in ourselves that will for sure help our world. That's our families and our world. So thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye bye.